se sećam da je ovo formalni salon američkog ambasadora u njegovoj rezidenciji ovde u Užičkoj 44. Tu su se obavljali uvek jako, jako važni razgovori. Verovatno da kada pređete u drugi deo salona imate mogućnosti da ambasadora upoznate i nekako drugačije. A znate zašto? Sedi opuštenije, obraća vam se na neki drugi način, a sve ono što je ovde, to je oficijalno. Jedni su s jedne strane, drugi su sa druge strane, piju istu kafu, isti čaj, ali su razgovori drugačiji. Your Excellency, let me tell you how I imagine where you live. You're in Florida. The weather is beautiful. Sea is there. You are out of active, really active work. And that when the phone rings, they call you. What was in your mind the moment when they called you and they said that you are going to be ambassador in Serbia? Try to remember that day.
Well, I'd be happy to, but it wasn't in Florida. My wife and I were leaving New York City, and we got into our car. We were driving to Colorado to spend a few weeks in the mountains. And on our way to Colorado, we stopped in Chicago, because it's a long route to Colorado. And then, so from Chicago to Colorado, we needed to stop for gasoline for our car. So we stopped, I think it was in Nebraska. I've never been in Nebraska before. And as I was contemplating what kind of gasoline I wanted in my car, my phone rang, and it was the White House Personnel Office telling me that President Biden would be thrilled, was the way they put it, if I would accept his suggestion that I go to Serbia. So as I was about to put gasoline in my car, I put the phone down from my ear and I said to my wife, Julie, hey, would you like to go to Belgrade? And she said, sure. So I said, we'd love to do it. And that was how I accepted the assignment to Belgrade.
Like that?
Just like that. I already knew where Belgrade was. I didn't really need to do a lot of research on it. So.
You have been here when you have been 8 years old?
Even earlier. I got here when I was just turning 6 years old.
For me, when I heard that, and when I saw your biography, CV, I realized one thing. After everything in the world happened, there is no many experts for Balkan. That's why they called you. You are very, very specific in your knowledge. You have an attitude. For example, now I cannot see exactly, I can't see how you feel about the interview. I cannot judge what you really think about. Can you imagine people which are negotiating with you? They look at your face and they cannot figure anything.
Really? It's that hard to tell?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The thing is that behind your maybe so cold, so controlled personality, there is a lot of emotion. This is what I feel. Okay. This is what I feel. And that you are having great difficulty not to show how you feel. Knowing Balkans, you are in the middle of a country where everything is emotional, everything. And you are here just to soften that up, to make us cooler, and to make us rational. And the people here are not rational, you know that. Do you?
No, I don't know that.
What do you know?
I think there are a lot of rational people here. And my job is to pursue U.S. interests, and I'd like to see if we can improve the relationship and get it back to where it used to be.
You're a good negotiator, are you?
That's not for me to judge. What I try to do is set out a logical course of action, and hope that my interlocutor will see the same logic that I do.
After you have been out of active job 10 years, you are a professor of a Columbia University, and you are in completely different field, and then the president calls you and probably says, listen, go there and try to sort it out. That means that you have very specific skills. What do you think about your skills? Be honest.
Well, look, first of all, you're very kind to say I know the Balkans. No one really knows the Balkans. It's a learning experience, and the first part of it is when you learn some things, you realize there's so many things you don't know, and that's a good habit to get into. That is, don't assume you understand something. But then, try to do a lot more listening than you do talking. Try to understand what's on people's minds. Don't assume that you understand that. And then once you have sort of a basic understanding, try to test out ideas on people, see how they react to them, and then try to make some progress.
For example, I'm sure that many people are coming to you. They talk to you. How can you decide to whom you believe? Which fact is the fact you know it's true? What is this art of making the selection of the information?
Well, I don't think you make a selection of people. I think you try to listen to everybody, even people that you certainly disagree with, but you just try to understand people's thought process, mentality, and try to make sure that when you say something, you have some chance of that being acceptable to what people are thinking. So it's a process, and it depends on your capacity to talk to others, but more importantly, your capacity to listen to others.
But you never show. You never show, do you agree or do you disagree? You have a kind, like sometimes, because, before this interview I was watching, when you appear, some interviews, some meetings, and I always see a kind of a highly controlled emotions and very kind try to understand. I have to say that I see that.
Well, I think a diplomat's job is to understand things, and the best way to understand something is not to be displaying emotions while you should be listening. So, yeah, I try to activate my brain rather than my emotions, and I recommend that for everybody.
Do you have difficulties in suppressing emotions, or you're trained for
sometimes, that? Well, sometimes you will hear someone say something that you just utterly and completely disagree with. So what's the best way to handle that? Do you say, I completely disagree with you, in which case that kind of ends the conversation? Or do you try to probe the person, ask some questions, have you thought about it this way or that way? And so you try to continue to have relationships. And I think the important thing about the Balkans, frankly about anywhere, not just the Balkans, is to understand that a lot of people have different points of view. You're rarely going to get one point of view from everybody. So again, listening skills are more important than talking skills.
Once you mentioned that Lawrence Eagleburger was somebody you have been working with in Belgrade,
yeah.
Right? Could you emphasize something which you maybe learned from him or where you disagreed?
I think he was one of our great ambassadors, probably not as well known as some other ambassadors, but I think he was really one of the greats. And as you know, he was ambassador here in Belgrade, and then he went on eventually to be Secretary of State. So he was certainly appreciated in places he needed to be appreciated, but I think a lot of people don't really recall his ambassador days. But I recall, first of all, he had a kind of moral compass. He knew which way he wanted to go with issues. It's always good to have a plan, even though your plans frequently change. But he always had a clarity of thought which I always appreciated. He liked people, and if you don't like people, you probably shouldn't be a diplomat. And he clearly liked people. And he displayed a certain amount of emotion, to be sure, but usually it was in places where it's appropriate, like on a tennis court.
The thing is that you openly show that you want to proceed. I don't think, for example, if I would have in some other field to, not to negotiate with you, to persuade you on something, I think I couldn't succeed.
Oh, you could absolutely persuade me
You
with
think?
something, yeah, because that's what being open-minded is all about. If you can't be persuaded about anything, you know, why do you have a brain? Your brain is to process things, try to understand things better. And when someone says something you hadn't thought of, you need to think about that, incorporate that into your overall view of things. So absolutely, you should be listening, and if someone can persuade you of going in another direction, you should be prepared to do that.
I'm interested how you persuade.
How I persuade
Yes.
people?
Yes.
You know, I think in negotiation, it's always a good tactic to say, this is where we want to get to. And try to talk about the goals, not the next step, but the goal of where you want to be. And once there's an agreement on the goal, then you get into the tactics of which road do we take to get to that goal. Because often people get bogged down on which route they're taking, and when in fact, once you agree on where you're going, then that becomes just a tactical question. So I always try to see if I have a similarity of the ultimate goal of where we're going with something. And if we don't, then it's kind of hard. Then you might do a sort of incremental step, but a step can take you further away or closer to your goal. So it's best to harmonize your goal with the person that you're talking to.
You showed your skill in Korea about this nuclear crisis.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was a tough one. That was a tough one. Thank goodness.
Are we tougher?
Oh, it's a rather different situation here. You don't have nuclear weapons. No, I'm kidding. But no, it's a very different situation.
It was difficult in Korea for you.
Yeah, it was. It was. I really believe in the U.S. Republic of Korea relationship. I think it's one of our great relationships in the world. I think it wasn't easy. You know, it started in the middle of a war, you know, where we helped them against a North Korean attack. So it was a tough beginning, but I think we've worked out a great relationship over the years. And what it really takes, no matter how big you are and how small the other guy might be, it really takes mutual respect. You have to respect people. And if you respect them, they can be your good friends.
How you feel the respect of somebody?
How do you feel the respect?
Yeah, how you feel it?
Well, usually if someone's listening and it pays attention to what you're saying, you can tell there's a certain amount of respect because, you know, listening and trying to understand where the other person has come from is a form of respect. So you can figure that out very quickly, as opposed to talking to someone who's only in a broadcast mode, who's only kind of telling you and not really listening to anything you're saying. So that's the first thing you can notice, you know, when people who are asking questions, listening, and not talking more than 50% of the time.
Do you know, I feel that you're not telling me that because you do not admit that you are a Balkan specialist.
You know,
Why?
I have to have a lot of respect for a part of the world that has been an utter complexity for centuries. And yes, I've read a lot, I feel I understand a lot, but every day I learn something new.
You're surprised.
So every day there are surprises, and surprises are usually life's indicator that you don't know everything, otherwise they wouldn't be surprises. So I'm kind of reluctant to claim something that is, I think, a sort of end goal of being a real expert in something. So I try to understand things.
I have been in London recently. I usually go there. And in London are some experts for Balkan. good ones. And I talked to 3 of them. I know them for ages.
Yeah.
They think that you are an expert for Balkan. And they counted in the world now, there are only 6 of them. You know that? 6 of them who can say, yes, we are Balkan experts. You are between them. You didn't know that.
You know, I was reading a history of the Balkans last weekend. It's a 600-page book by a British author named Misha Glenny. And I was reading about the Congress of Berlin. I was kind of fascinated by that in 1878. And I tell you, every time I turn the page, I learn something new. So,
You are. And for that reason, I think, and you know something? You're a very good negotiator.
well, that's very kind.
No,
I
it's not.
I don't know
You
if
have-
everyone
you
agrees,
have,
but
you have to way. You have the way to soften up the thing. If something is very sharp, you know how to not to make it sharp.
That's a very good point, and it's something that I think is important for every negotiator. If you're in a hurry, that's bad. You should always try to spend a little time getting to know your interlocutor and don't rush the person. I sometimes think that Americans, you know, always seem to be jet lagged because we're always traveling, and you know, we get to the point, try to get to the point too quickly. And I think you have to kind of get to know the person before you get to the point. So I think it's not, being a negotiator is not something where you should be hurrying to the end. Now, sometimes issues are absolutely urgent and you've got to make progress and make it quickly. But it's often you have to take time in order to get things done quickly.
How do you sleep?
How do I sleep? With my eyes closed.
You sleep well?
Yeah, I do. I get up a little earlier than I want to.
For example, do you have sometimes that you cannot decide things? That you don't know how you are going to handle and that you are making it maybe changing?
But you should never try to combine those moments with trying to get to sleep, because then you'd never get to sleep if you're always thinking about those things. So I usually get to sleep by thinking of things that are pretty irrelevant to my immediate life, like whether a sports team from Boston is going to win.
Is it?
And it, you know, it's not that important, but I like thinking about sports and things like that, and that helps me get to sleep.
I wanted to present you to the viewers as you are, you know, and I'm trying, you see I'm trying, because everything what I see, I always feel that it's not you, that it's a job, this is one thing, your duty, second thing, and what I feel is something maybe else, maybe something more delicate, more emotional, and somebody I would always listen to, and I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure you out. You know that?
I don't know if I can help you.
You're helping me.
Okay.
Listening and watching us.
Yes, I have.
Do you believe me that I had a very, very difficult job?
Oh, absolutely not, because he is a fantastic diplomat, and I like that you have observed that you can't tell what he's thinking and how he's feeling, but the man is brilliant. You think he's not listening? He is. He's always listening. But he is, I feel, the best negotiator. You brought up Korea, so he was the lead negotiator in the six-party talks with 6 other countries. So it's such a very interesting time.
For me, I wanted to interview him because when he's on the air,
Yes.
I always have a feeling that there is something behind, I feel it. And that's why I'm here. And I'm very glad that you think that I brought up certain things.
Yes.
Because I think that he can negotiate forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and he has so much knowledge and wisdom. And because you have lived in this area, in the region, he does bring. And I believe, as you were saying, he is a Balkan expert.
Why he's underestimating his skills? Explain me. Is he modest or what?
I would believe he is not going to say, oh, I am the best and I'm greatest and I can do everything. Yes, he is modest, and that's what I love and respect about him. We have been married 13 years and we've known each other about 15 years, and I didn't even know some of his experiences and what he has done, and really how well respected he is all over the world.
For example, you have to know that for this interview and this visit, I had to prepare myself.
Yes, yes.
I was reading everything.
Good.
In London,
Fantastic.
In London,
Yes.
I was asking,
Good.
people.
Great.
I didn't get anything so tiny about him. He's, I would say, he's secretive, very, very private person, and it's very difficult to read his face.
Well,
You
that
agree?
would be.
How do you know when he's angry? How do you know that?
Oh,
With you?
well, for our personal life, of course, when we have conversations or listening or not listening to each other, that can be a problem.
You're a loser then.
Well, no. Sometimes he's a loser. I'm not always a loser. Sometimes he's a loser. It's a give and take with any relationship. But he's so gifted. He is so gifted. And when you say he's private, well, he loves baseball. He loves sports. And so a lot about him already. And he lived here and he was a student here. So
He said one very interesting thing. He said that he learned a lot when he was here.
Yes.
Yes. I believe him.
yes,
I believe him.
absolutely.
Because can you imagine a young boy
Mhm.
from America
Yes.
comes here
Yes.
and he has to find his place.
Right.
He has to feel it.
Right.
So some of his skills are coming from that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where a person does gain their skills from their background experience, from their knowledge, from their feeling about places. And he was so happy when the president did ask him.
Was he pleased? You have been in a car.
Oh my goodness, we were just so pleased, and I am so very, very proud of him. And he has diplomacy, foreign policy, being a diplomat in his blood. So you mentioned that we lived in Denver, Colorado, and he was a professor. He was the dean at the University of Denver International School. And he also taught classes and was a professor, but he was still traveling internationally probably once a month. And people were still coming to him and asking him things, and he would do interviews all of the time. But what he did, which I love, is he shared his knowledge and everything he knew to students, to the younger generation. And that's, I mean, his classes, they're supposed to be 25, they filled up to 225 because everyone wanted to learn from him because he has so much.
What do you say on that? Married for 13 years and to get all this warmth from the wife?
It's great. We have a great relationship, and we're very proud of our marriage, and we work every day.
Tell me, are you surprised always with your wife? You know why? She's opposite of you. You are holding up and she's open.
Well, here's what I say. I said, my husband loves politics and I love people. So it's a good balance. If we both were into politics, it would be this. We're like this.
You can't control your wife, can you?
No.
You can't. You can't. You cannot.
Oh,
You cannot. This is a balance, you know.
yes, it is a balance. And thank you.
But we're very much of a team here in Serbia. Julie has her own programs. Often she's off doing things. I have my own thing. But we like to spend as much time together
Yes,
as
we do.
possible.
If Julie is next to you, when you are very harsh, very strict, and very, very severe, then Julie is doing the best possible job for Serbia. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
She's softening you up. She's making you mild sometimes. You feel
She
that?
might be kicking me in the leg at that time.
She
yes.
is kicking you at the
Well, he's a serious diplomat. He's a serious one, which I respect, and a lot of people respect that because he has that knowledge and understanding and the history. And he loves people just as much as I do and enjoys bringing people together and listening and learning from others as well, which I love. Again, that's what makes him who he is and the best negotiator, because you can't see which way he's turning or which way he's going, but he is bringing it all in to his brain, processing it, and then having a great way forward.
This is just a try, you know, to show somebody who is having a very great influence what's going to happen with us, you know.
Yes.
Really,
Yes.
really. And for that reason, I'm here. Mr. Ambassador, Julie, thank you.
Yes,
thank you
you're
for
welcome.
having me.
Thank you.